What do you think the impact of wearable technology is on our ability to affect behavior change, change our habits? We've both got wearable devices on right now. You just completed some great research on physical activity. I'm doing some research right now at Stanford University on sleep using wearable technologies. Like, we're both in this space, but I'd love your take on that, because some people think that it's great and other people say that it actually makes things worse. So
Yeah.
I'd be curious about your take on it.
I think those are probably both right. You know, like for some people it can lead to like obsessive behaviors or make them feel bad for their comparing themselves to other people who have completely different situations. For others, it can be a fantastic facilitator. So I guess my short answer is like, I think it's part of the solution.
Okay.
I don't think it's like the whole answer, but I think it can kickstart a lot of people. And I use it sort of every day, but I'm me. So it's like I check my rings. I've got an Apple Watch,
Yeah.
which is an expensive device, but I think they can unleash like a few like behavior change sort of techniques. And if they're well designed, I think they can get people started on lifelong physical activity for sure.
Right on. Tell me about your latest research.
Okay, speaking of lifelong physical activity, so we actually just published that paper in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, which is a pretty good sort of exercise science journal. And it was the longest and largest study ever done on a fitness app. So we followed about 500,000 Canadians over 2 years, and we found about a 250 step increase compared to baseline, which doesn't sound like a whole heck of a lot. But when we started to slice and dice the data, we found that certain groups were increasing their activity more. So for example, people who downloaded it in the first few months and had like sort of full access to the intervention for about a year, they increased their steps by about 1,000. People who were lower active, so less than 5,000 steps at baseline, they increased by about 2,000. And anything over 1,000, as you probably know, is what we call like clinically meaningful. Mm-hmm. So it'll lead to like longer life, less cardiovascular disease, less diabetes. But even more importantly, it helps with like the today stuff. So like you're going to be a better partner, you'll do better at work, you'll sleep better, you'll have less pain in your back, better mood, happier. So anyway, so it was neat to be able to show for the first time, especially with like a pretty large sample, that fitness apps can actually drive long-term change, because there's like 100,000 in the App Store and no evidence that they work long-term, which is the whole point, right? Yeah. So it was fun. That came out a couple of weeks ago and we're pretty pumped about it.
That's pretty amazing. Let's dig into that data a little bit more. I would be really curious about the difference between people in the low activity group, moderate activity, and high activity. So does the starting point have an effect, or did they respond differently?
Yeah. So like one of the warts of the study actually was that we found a decrease among the very active. So the people who started off around 10,000 steps or more actually saw a decrease over the course of the 2 years. And if you dig into the long, boring academic paper, we sort of hypothesize on a few reasons for that. Maybe the extrinsic reward that we provided, should probably mention that. The app was called Carrot Rewards, like the vegetable. We gave people tiny financial incentives to hit personalized daily step goals as measured by smartphones. So any Canadian listeners would know, like scene points, were sort of very common at the time and continue to be pretty popular.
So that's like movie
points, but you could also redeem them at restaurants and stuff like that. And about 80% of our users collected these scene points. And we were giving people like literally a nickel worth of points a day for hitting their personalized daily step counts. But people tend to overvalue these points, and they're given immediately, which is that sort of leverages that present bias from behavioral economics I was talking about before. So anyway, it turns out that those higher active folks might not have needed that extra extrinsic incentive motivator, and just sort of like stop using the app after a while because they didn't really need it.
Got it.
Whereas the people on the lower end of the activity spectrum, they needed that extrinsic motivation to like slowly creep up that motivation mountain, increase the confidence in their ability to do this shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then to do it like through 8 hard Canadian seasons.
Right.
So that was interesting. It's sort of disappointing to see like a sort of a chunk of users have a decrease, but I don't actually think they decreased. I think they just actually started to track their activity less using their phone. That's kind of one of my hypotheses. But
That's super
anyway,
interesting.
yeah.
Why do you think it had such a powerful effect on the lower activity group?
I'm thinking it was the extrinsic reward and the very realistic, personalized, and adaptive goal that we were setting for them.
Right.
I guess it was sort of inspired by the cardiac rehab work I was doing, like that. The exercise prescriptions, that's what we call them in cardiac rehab, because exercise, as you know, is very much like a medicine, are always super personalized. So it makes no sense to ask, 100,000 people to hit the same step goal of 8,000 steps or 10,000 steps, right? So being able to personalize goals and then adapt them over time. So like if somebody loses a job or moves houses or rolls an ankle, like they won't be able to do what they were doing before. So the goals would sort of adjust over the course of the year. And we would always sort of drip this extrinsic reward to try to keep them on track and give them feedback with confetti and stuff on the app, and it really seemed to work. And like the data speaks for itself, but also tons of fantastic stories from users, really sort of inspirational stuff, like never been active before in my life, just finished 3 rounds of chemo, and I'm walking and I'm feeling amazing. So, and it wasn't fancy. It was just walking, like that's all it really was.
Yeah. Well, given the number of people that are completely inactive in society, period, simply walking can be completely revolutionary.
Yeah.
And if you have people on that app that are saying, I just finished 3 rounds of chemo and I'm out, I'm walking, I feel amazing, or I've never done anything before in my life ever, and I'm actually walking, it's actually accessible. You can do this every day. You can just take a few more steps. You don't need to hit 10,000.
Yeah.
The answer is actually just like a little bit more. It's so accessible.
Yeah. I like to call it the superhero of exercises.
Really?
It's because I mean, for the most part, most people can do it.
Yeah.
And the benefits are just like so wide ranging, and it's just walking. It doesn't have to be fast, It doesn't have to be hard, the faster, the better. There's a great paper that came out actually a couple of days ago in Nature that showed like how much of a health impact, like a little bit of that higher intensity exercise, like even just a minute compared to the slower stuff can have. But that's sort of the top of the exercise prescription pyramid. Like you want to optimize intensity at the top. At the bottom of the exercise prescription or walking period is routine. It's just like establish a bit of a walking routine.
Yeah.
And you're setting yourself up for fantastic chances for like lifelong walking, physical activity, and like outdoor walking is fantastic. And I know you talk about that quite a bit. Just walking outdoors, I think compared to indoors reduces your blood pressure, doesn't it?
It does, significantly. And even just looking at images of outdoor environments lowers your blood pressure by like 5 points.
Yeah.
If you do it with a scene of nature plus water, it's even greater.
Yeah.
You don't even have to do anything. You just look at a photo of being outside. Imagine what it's like getting outside to actually do it in the real outdoors. It's just so good for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to mention was walking and how wide ranging the benefits of just a little bit more walking. So we're talking about like 5 minutes, maybe 10 more minutes than you normally do. So that's equivalent to like 500 steps, maybe 1,000 steps, you know? And you can do it like any time of day, and then thinking of like tips, like putting your running shoes out the night before, or like if after dinner is a good time for you to go for a little walk, or like if you've got a busy work schedule, for example, like blocking, like putting it actually in your schedule, just to walk around the building or go down to the bottom of the building and then back up again. Just a little bit of walking can make such a massive difference in people's lives.
I love it.